So, welcome back. This is Night Flight, and today I have Cynthia Sue Larson with me, and she is a very successful author, and she has a degree in physics. She's also a life coach, and she is trying to connect science with imagination. So, Cynthia, welcome.
Thank you, Judith. I'm so glad to be talking with you today and love the subject. So this is fun.
Yeah. So that's always my first question when I have a new guest. What sparked your interest in
Mhm.
reality shifting?
Yeah, great question. It feels like it's so much a part of the way I view my life. I've been looking at the nature of reality since I was a child because I'd noticed that when I would think things, reality would respond, but it was apparently not a common experience for most people. So it was very interesting to, for example, looking out the window of my home, noticing if it's raining and I'm thinking stop rain, then it would stop. And I think start rain, it would start. And it was going back and forth very perfectly. And then I got very excited, like, oh, let's go tell my mom. And that's when I started noticing that as soon as you bring someone else into this playfulness, it didn't work the same, which is what they know in casinos. I didn't know that when I was 5 years old, but obviously in casinos, if they have someone who's controlling things, they bring in a cooler, someone that can influence the influencer. So this is quite real about psychokinetic effects. But just because of that observation, the awareness that what I'm thinking, and things would break, and I would just intend that they would work again. Back in the 1960s, sometimes trying to start a car, it wouldn't start every time, especially on a cold morning. But if you send love and connection to the car, it does start. So as a child, I would do this, but I would never talk about it. And then I did study physics, and quantum physics really brought me a sense of the possibilities of how there could be an explanation for this. So I've been a lifelong questioner into the so-called static nature of reality, that it just stays where we think it is. And just because you think it's been a certain way, it stays that way. I know that's not true. And well, I had a Kundalini awakening at age 32 in 1994. And at that point, a Kundalini awakening is where all the energy centers in my body fired up, and I felt like I was on fire or something. In a not a bad way, not like I'm burning, but it felt like a energy running through me, a lot of energy. And then the psychokinetic effects I'm referring to got a lot more pronounced. So that if I was upset and not grounded, like I'm not walking barefoot and feeling like, oh, everything's perfect, then things would break and all sorts of things would happen that were not pleasant. And the reverse is also true. So healing occurs and good things happen too.
hmm Did you intended to have a Kundalini awakening, or was that spontaneous?
That's interesting. In that year, around springtime, around the equinox of 1994, I felt like I needed to wake up. I mean, I was awake and I didn't even know who to talk to about this, but I found a cousin of mine. I felt like she could understand. She was very spiritual. And I asked her, do you think, I mean, have you heard of this before where someone just feels like they're not awake even though they're awake? Do you know what I mean? She said at least she could empathize. And so that was the spring. By that autumn, I did have that awakening that I'd been waiting for. And it happened immediately after my husband at the time had gone on a business trip. And I think I was just waiting till I could talk to one more person, and that would be him. So when he looked at the ceiling and everything looked different and he had a spiritual awakening, then it's like it gave me permission for everything to open up, and boy, did it. So that's when the energy started flowing, and I was seeing things and instantly remote traveling and astral traveling, and just things that are normal for Kundalini that are not normal in regular everyday life.
hmm
And so that all opened up for me then.
So you would say to you that was a positive experience, because I have also read a number of experiences where people said essentially my life went to shit from there on out.
Could
So,
do that. Yeah, I can see how I would never recommend. In fact, I've cautioned people that said, I want my Kundalini now. I said, please don't do that. Don't do that because it's much more important to find yourself, get grounded, get solid, so that you're calm and centered. Because it's just like if you imagine a car and you're not quite familiar with driving yet, and you think, I want to be a race car driver. I want rocket fuel in my tank. I want to adapt my car to have that rocket fired takeoff. And what if you're not a good driver yet? What if you don't really know what to do if your car is spinning out of control or if it's approaching the wall really fast? Can you change direction quickly enough? Can you stay calm? Those are good questions to answer. And so, just like you wouldn't get on a racetrack with seasoned professional race car drivers when you've not had the training and you feel like you're barely able to drive a car at, certain speeds, maybe freeway speeds on a good day, but maybe not always. You should not be doing that with the rocket fuel. And Kundalini is rocket fuel, much more so. And so that means any random dis dis unalignment, disalignment between your head, your heart, your gut, it's going to create a crash condition. And so it's very easy to crash on a Kundalini. Very easy. Much better to first become calm, embrace whatever spiritual path you have to relinquish false narratives, false beliefs. It's a big thing. So you want to go through your spiritual centering first, balancing, grounding, and clearing any kind of unalignment between what you think you want, what you actually love, and what you need in your gut. If you don't even know what those are, then you need to take some time because it's too dangerous to ramp up all the energy and then start trying to navigate at those ridiculous energy levels. So
hmm.
you're correct. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so yeah, I find that important to point out because sometimes we have a tendency to be very impatient and we want something so badly, and then everything goes to hell.
Yes.
Mm.
The most important thing is to be balanced and calm so everything just feels like it's just easy, like boiling water, like waking up and just stepping out of bed. It should be that simple. And if it's not, then you need to make sure it is. So it's like that old saying about chop wood, carry water before enlightenment, and after enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So I read something on your website, which is realityshifters.com. And it says here quantum age is usually no. Sorry, that is something else. Pardon. Um, where is it? I can't find my notes. Um, oh, here it is. Sorry about that. We exist in an interconnected holographic multiverse in which we are literally jumping from one parallel universe to another with every choice we make. So we have to unpack that a little bit. I get it. Let's say um, at one point, I decided to work as a flight attendant. I did that for 37 years. So, and of course, if I did not have made that decision, my life would have been very different. I most likely would not have met my Kenyan husband and on and go. Yeah, that is why I have this funny last name. And so, from that perspective, of course, that decision changed a lot in my life. Um, but when it comes to jumping from one parallel universe to another. How do I have to envision that? Can you elaborate a little bit?
yes, this has to do with something. We can look at an example from quantum physics. Hopefully, it won't lose people. But that's where it comes, this idea comes from physics. It comes from the observer effect, the idea that the observation of a system or an event can absolutely change what is being observed. And that may sound crazy, but we've seen experimental evidence supporting this as a fact. That in the double slit experiment, for example, we can look at it's that which this experiment has been called the most elegant experiment in all of science. So I want to introduce it properly. It is, I think it's well deserving of that praise because it's got a very simple apparatus. It's just a particle emitter sending one photon at a time, which reaches a screen which has two slits in it, like two doorways, and then it goes to a screen at the back. So that's about it. And then there's the observer. And so you might think, well, what's the big deal here? You're firing a photon, it goes through one or the other slit and it hits the screen. Of course it does, but how does it do that? And what are we actually observing? And so if we put an observational device in one of the slits, then because the observational measuring apparatus is in a slit, we actually do know which slit the photon went through. And because we know, this is where it gets kind of weird. Then the photon kind of knows we're looking. It knows that we know, and then it acts a little bit like a blob. It's kind of like, oh, you saw me, so I'm going to go right here, blab, splat. But if we're not looking in the apparatus and we're only watching the final screen here over here, then we get a diffraction pattern developing. So even though there's only one photon at a time, it's as if you're throwing two pebbles in a pond and getting all the ripples, the constructive higher waves and the lower waves, the destructive interference. And you get the diffraction pattern on the screen, one photon at a time, creating a diffraction pattern. There should be no interference. There's only one photon, but you're not looking through the two slits. And so because of this, it's an observation. Okay, now I'll go back to real life. Thanks for going with me into physics experiment. So the physics experiment shows us that the observer makes an effect of what's being observed. There have been many variations of this double slit experiment conducted, showing that a future observation can affect the past. I mean, that's like, wait, what? Yes. And also showing that two observers in the same place and same time can see two totally different things. Yes. So this experiment is very simple, very basic, perfect for providing so many deep, wonderful observations about the nature of reality. And when we recognize that observation itself, how we chose to be there in that moment, were we in the slit or were we just watching the screen? That positioning of the observation is everything. And so we can now recognize, well, how does that relate to my life? It relates tremendously. And this is something we can all test and experiment with. Because if you ask something like start your day and say, my favorite question, how good can it get? You're immediately, and if you really care about knowing, like, yeah, I need to know that today. How good can today get? How good can I get today? Let's do it. Let's find out. That is a choice of an observation. And then minute by minute, that starting intention can provide some guidance. We usually hardly think about our moment by moment decisions. Very seldom are we that conscious. Most of the time, we're in autopilot. This may be shocking to people if they've never looked at it, but it's just like if you've driven your car and you don't know how you got to where you're going so fast. You were thinking about something else and you suddenly arrived. What happened in between? So that's an example of being in sort of autopilot and the subconscious is running things. So our ability to be the observer, to create a narrative and a story about what's really happening right now is very powerful. And it absolutely changes everything. I can't absolutely prove this because we sort of get one run through. Like you can't know what it's like not to have been a what do you call that? I don't think they call them stewardesses now, but the modern term, flight
Flight
attendant.
attendant.
Yes. So
Yeah.
if you how it's hard to imagine what would if you weren't a flight attendant for those all those years. That was a long time. Do you know what else you might have been doing? If you know, yeah, I think maybe I might have been, and then fill in the blank. Here's where it gets interesting. You actually now have the ability to access that possible alternate version of yourself who has a whole other set of skills that maybe you would like to have now. And you can, if you choose, you can say, okay, I'd like to have that skill set. I'd like to be good at whatever it is. Maybe you didn't want to be an auto mechanic. I'm going to pick something ridiculous, but maybe you did. So you can say, okay, now I've got the skills of being an auto mechanic, as if I'd spent 37 years doing that. which is a long time. You can master a lot of things. Or you could have been a medical doctor or a physician's assistant, and you can say, like, wow, I know a lot right now. And so I'm not saying you can absolutely trust as if, you had all that, but you can teach yourself that. 37 years is enough time to get mastery at lots of things. And so you can actually imagine that that version of you is right with you. And if you want to gain experience in whatever that field is, you can gain experience very rapidly. And to the degree that you trust the information, it could be almost instantaneous. I can't recommend people trust it instantly. I'd rather recommend learn it a little at a time. But that's how powerful this is. And we also, just like the double slit experiment shows us, we're able to change the past even. So you can send hope and good intentions and healing to yourself or others that you loved in the past. And this gets I mean, it gets complex very quickly. But some of these things you can observe. You can feel like, okay, I sent love to the past and my relationships got better. But
Okay. Okay. So have you, is that a personal experience that what you did in, yeah, let's say in the now, um, changed the past?
yes, we often see this with instantaneous healing. That's what I would say is happening there. Because if you receive a diagnosis or if you have a broken leg or an injury of some sort, and it seems like there's no way to heal this rapidly, there is actually a way to heal it rapidly, and that would be to access that point where it happened and to send love and the expectation and the knowingness that it didn't happen the way that you think it happened. So we are the ones who are locking an observation into place. This is a complex idea also. And we again, it's mostly a subconscious process. To override it and to bring the consciousness to it requires first being adept at being very calm and grounded and not trying to change things that shouldn't be changed. So knowing that what's having implicit faith, it's the word I can't think of a better word, just confidence that no matter what it may look like, everything's just fine. And even if it looks like a disaster, that there's a gift in this and we're accepting whatever the gift is. Because some situations, by the time you want to change them, they've gotten pretty difficult and dire. And it may seem like this is untenable, if this is terrible, we can't deal with this anymore. So the first thing you want to do is become calm in that situation and just really rest. So we've been talking about ideas that show up in my book, Quantum Jumps. And in that book, I share an example of talking to a friend who had she was getting a new job, so she had new health insurance. But before the job started, she'd gone to kind of like a gathering with friends in at a park in the wilderness where she was doing something she said was foolish. They were drinking alcohol, and then she was jumping from large boulder to large boulder. She jumped and then she fell and she broke her leg. And she hadn't started her job yet, and she didn't have health insurance yet. So she phoned me. And this is a very interesting situation because my friend Susan had seen um, a year or two earlier, we'd gotten together and she'd observed me very quietly without trying to draw no attention to what I was doing. I looked at my arm and it was bleeding. So I put my hand over it as I'm still talking to her and I'm trying not to draw attention to it. Remember, I learned from watching Start Rain, Stop Rain. It works better if you don't tell someone what you're doing. And I thought, I'm bleeding, but I'd like that to stop. I'd like it to be just like no injury at all. So that's what I'm doing. I thought it was quiet. I thought she wouldn't notice. I take my hand away, there's no blood, it's all better. And I think, oh, good. And I just keep talking. But then she noticed that at that lunch that we were at. And she said, Cynthia, did your arm stop bleeding? Wasn't it bleeding just a moment ago? And I said, yes, it was. And so we talked about it then. And so now her leg is broken. We're on the phone. She lives in Southern California. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. So we're talking, and she said I did the stupid thing of jumping from rock to rock. My leg's broken. I don't have. I think her health insurance was about to start, but they'd put a cast on her leg, or they'd checked her out, and it was broken. But she said, I wish it wasn't because I'm starting my new job. And I said, well, do you remember that time that I put my hand over my arm? Remember that? And she said, yes. I said, which that's actually a possibility. We can access that time, previously. We can send love to that moment where you think you jumped from rock to rock and you think you broke it. What if you didn't break it? What if it's, you know, basically healed? What if you can feel that it's healing right now and it's back to normal? And she said she'd love that. And so this is a really golden opportunity. She knew it was possible. Even her subconscious knew. She'd observed me do the impossible. If you've seen someone do the impossible, then you know this is not impossible. So she knew, like, okay, maybe Cynthia's right, and I would really love that. So her head agrees, her heart agrees, now the subconscious, she's seen it, she agrees. I think all of these was necessary because the next thing that happened is on the phone, she said, Cynthia, I'm feeling an itching sensation inside my leg where it was broken. I said, that's very good. Itching is normal for healing. This is normal. She said, it's really strong. And I said, good. And then the next thing that happened is her leg was no longer broken. She had a follow-up appointment, and the doctors checked her out and they saw this is not a broken leg. So it's possible to change the past, is what we learned from this. But it helps if your subconscious believes it. And so this is why I encourage people sign up for my newsletter. It's free. And so once a month you can read stories about this happening. You don't even have to buy a book. You can just get the newsletter and like, oh my gosh, this is happening. People from around the world noticing that things that have happened can change and you can change them for the better. And it helps. Again, it's this whole business of lining up your head, your heart, and your gut. If that's how you know that you need it, you love it, you want it, and it's not out of alignment with yourself and the rest of the world. So it's important to have this all lined up. I wouldn't recommend doing anything without that kind of a simple, very solid framework and basis, foundation.
So, in other words, she was not somebody that you had already educated. She just observed this one moment when your arm was bleeding, and yet she was able to heal her leg.
She did, yes, that's true. She also had an additional benefit of believing basically miracles are possible. You can call it a miracle, or you can say a quantum jump is possible. She had a very spiritual, for her, it was spiritual. For her, it was miracles. For her, she believed God does this, and it's something that can happen. So she believed that. That really helps. So is even if you look at the placebo effect results that I also describe in my book, Quantum Jumps, people that have that level of faith in any similar faith to that, where they believe I can get the placebo and it's going to work just fine, then the placebo can work just fine because they have that faith. That faith makes a huge difference. Then the placebo effect goes up to being almost as good as anything. I mean, it's almost like a guarantee that whatever you need is going to happen. So if you believe, if you have that faith and then you do something to help yourself feel like, well, I'm doing something. Like for her, she's calling her friend Cynthia and Cynthia's helping. She believes that's the Dumbo's feather. That's the placebo. Probably this all could have happened for her if she had a lot more faith and if she didn't need to also call her friend Cynthia. But a lot of us, we're surrounded by this society that tells us things like this are not possible. I grew up with my parents, my teachers, everybody telling me this is not possible. But I'd seen it with my own eyes. I'd seen things can and do change, and they can change with our thoughts, with our feelings. So I know that's true. And so I'm swimming upstream. I'm saying something very different than what my parents said, what the schools told me. And I'm doing it at this time in the world because we need this. This is the time when we need the science of miracles more than any other time that I've seen. We're in a very, I mean, I don't need to talk about the world situation, but obviously, I think it's obvious.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing is that what you experienced as a child and you couldn't quite explain it, but you managed that your school, your teachers, your parents, whoever it was, they didn't condition you into, ah, yeah, I just imagined it.
Yeah, well, I did get a lot of conditioning. I did fit in. It wasn't until 1994 that I broke free. I was about 32 years old. And then it took 5 years to integrate that Kundalini awakening. Even though I had a quote unquote, good Kundalini awakening, it was very rough, very difficult. to recognize that reality is not at all what we thought it is, to realize that it's so different that I was experiencing things like seeing all around to the back of my head, 360-degree vision, instantaneous, just astral flight, and I'd be somewhere else and I'd know something telepathically that there's no way I could know that. These things were shocking, to say the least. This is where it's a Kundalini awakening can be very disturbing. Not, and that's not even mentioning the energy effects, because anything that I'm thinking, if I thought something bad about a person, terrible things would happen. And then I had to learn, okay, don't think anything bad about anyone. You might think, oh, that's easy. That is not easy. Not in the culture that, but I realize I don't want to do anything that bad to someone. So I can't think bad things about people. What a
Yeah.
change. So these are the small things that I went through. But yeah, once all that happened, then right. I could try to integrate back into society.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're right. There are people who made a make a living out of trashing others.
I know.
Yeah.
I- so I would not wish a Kundalini on those people. It's really rough. I mean, a lot of people I would not wish most people I would not wish that they have a Kundalini awakening. It's very challenging. It is like that race car driving. And what happens if you're wishing bad things for someone? For me, I realized, oh, just as bad as if I'm wishing it for myself. I
Mm,
can't, I can't, I can't prove that. It's something one needs to experience. So older souls know this, younger souls don't know yet. So they keep doing it till they learn. That's all.
yeah. Although I have to admit, when I observe very harsh injustices, yeah,
Yeah.
from a particular group of people that are doing it again and again and again, and obviously so far getting away with it, it makes my blood boil.
Yes.
And then I do wish bad things to them. Yeah, I'm honest here. That's
Yeah.
because I cannot fathom that. Of course, I know that. Where do you stand on people that might have no soul? Do you think that is possible?
It does look like I hate to say it's possible, but anything's possible. So even that might be possible. And actually, I've just recently, my name showed up in the Epstein files. When I say this to most people that know me, they laugh. They're just incredulous, and then they're like, ha 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 ha. Okay, this is true because I never talked to Jeffrey Epstein. No communication. I never went to the island. So then you might say, well, wait a minute, Cynthia, how is it possible that your name ended up because I was receiving emails about physics and consciousness along with Deepak Chopra, who is a friend. He's the one. Deepak then he took that. It wasn't just me. A Nobel Prize winning physicist was on the list and several others. So not I don't expect any of them had anything to do with Jeffrey Epstein, but Deepak was friends with Jeffrey Epstein and he was sending these emails back and forth. So anyway, because that happened, I took that as I never would have looked at these Epstein files, never. But now it's like my name is in there. Okay, what's going on? So I did look into it. So this is to follow up with your question. Absolutely, there's something terribly wrong. And it goes very deep and it's much bigger than just Epstein. And there was an infiltration of science universities, including Harvard, MIT, Arizona State, just to name a few universities that were seriously adversely impacted by receiving grant money. I don't even know how much, at least hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions, in return for what? And what was it's terrible what happened. And then I'm not going to get into what Epstein was doing, but he's not the only one. And this goes back way before him. And it's even no matter what you think happened to Epstein, that problem still exists. And so it's huge. And then scientists are blind. They don't even know. They're just so happy, like, oh, there's money here. Um, but I know some of the people that were receiving that money. And so I talk about this. I'm doing an interview especially about this with Alexis Brooks on Higher Journeys with Alexis on YouTube. So you can look that up, and you can, if people want to hear about that, I'll go into a lot more detail with her. But I don't want to. I was hoping to talk about the positive things with you. So, but
Yeah,
yes, I am so aware of that, and even so. I'm not wishing, in general, I don't wish evil on people. At worst, I would just return their own energy back to them so they can start dealing with that. That would be something if they can learn from that. But yeah, there are some really bad situations. Correct.
yeah, yeah.
Very dark, very
That
dark.
is actually a better idea. You know, I should probably yeah, try to do that instead of wishing hell for them to they just reflect back their energy. Yeah, but
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it is not like regular people that I meet on the street.
No,
It's just
I
really
know, I know. Yeah, I
horrific
know.
things like that, or people
Right.
misused in torture chambers and what
Mm.
have you, and they are still president of the land. And yeah, no.
Yeah, something's wrong. And I'm glad you brought it up because it's important at this time for us to be transparent. As soon as I found out my name was in the Epstein files, because someone emailed me, Cynthia, you're in the Epstein files. I'm like, wait, what? I laughed and I thought, what? And then it was true. But then I immediately went to social media. I showed, okay, yes, this is how it happened. This is why it happened. Deepak Chopra, I know him. He invited me to be interviewed by him in New York City. I did go there. So I know Deepak. And but I'm not affiliated with him. I don't, and certainly not Jeffrey Epstein. I just met Deepak once, 1 hour talking to him. I realized we're not friends. He's not my mentor. He's not my hero. Not quite the opposite. And so that was enough. One meeting with Deepak was enough. That was it. So, because then people challenge me, like, Cynthia, you teach intuition. Why are you involved with Deepak Chopra? Well, to be interviewed for an hour is, that's an opportunity. And then I spoke to his audience. The reason I'm not considering him a friend or a hero is at the end of that interview, is to sum it all up. This is how he summarized everything I'm doing. He said, well, Cynthia, some people would call all of this what you're doing, and then a swear word, something excrement of cows. I'm not going to say it on the channel.
Mm,
And I thought, wow, that's how he's summing up a science of miracles, is to say that. His cynicism, his skepticism. I thought he has to walk with that, but that's not part of my friends, my group of peers and colleagues like yourself. Hopefully, not calling all of this some swear word. That just seems uncalled for, unnecessary, unhelpful, and not what I would expect from a thought leader in the field of consciousness. So it was disappointing. Um,
mm.
but I don't wish any harm to Deepak. I don't know exactly what happened, and it's not my business. But I think it's very valuable to talk about these heroes. People put people on pedestals and they look up to them, and I think we need to be careful about that as well.
Absolutely right. Nobody belongs on a pedestal. Absolutely nobody. But if you have a person with charisma and they are a good talker, and what they are saying makes sense, and on it goes. It goes pretty quickly that people put this savior label on you.
Yeah,
And I noticed this. It's maybe a little bit a little bit strange for some people, but I followed the entire um, Ugandan election campaign. This January they had election, and I followed the campaign, and I saw that this campaign was not a campaign; it was more like a military operation, because the main opponent, he constantly they blocked the road. They were tear gassed. And they drew so many people. Yeah, the people are so ripe for change, and now um, the actual president who won the election is not Museveni. He stole the election, and the real one is in hiding. And what I found interesting when I listened to him, because I think he noticed that um, he became the hero of an entire generation. Yeah. And he always said, I am not your savior. We have to do this together.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is so important. Even if you are that person that
Yes.
is in the focus, that you make that clear. I'm
That's the
not
only
your
way
savior.
forward. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you're so right about that. And I think for anybody who's intuitive, you'll start seeing this message showing up everywhere. So it's the time to not be worshiping any idea, thing, person, construct, any ideology even. So it's a recognition that we need to know for ourselves what is good, what's right. We do, and we can make those decisions one at a time, changing all of reality as we do. And it's very different because we've been like sleepwalking collectively. And it's a rather extreme example you just gave, and I've personally not followed that election. It sounds shocking I'm so surprised you can talk about it so calmly. It sounds like the horrific experience to watch this happening to a whole people in Uganda. Very terrible. But fortunately, as you say, now they have a leader who says, do not worship me, even though there may be that temptation, that very strong human temptation, like, oh, we have a savior. That's the biggest mistake you could make at any point. Whether it's and it's not just Uganda. Well, you can see it anywhere that we look.
Mm,
So that's my invitation today for people to stop putting anything on a pedestal, anything at all. It's time to live in our hearts from love. Bring that divinity inside and make every small decision that way. That's the way to go forward. With these small decisions, we make a new world. And that's how it's going to happen for sure.
yeah. Yeah. Um, and w when I looked at that entire situation, and then later on, the son of Museveni threatened to castrate Bobby Wine, and on again, and that is what I just mentioned, that these are situations that make my blood boil.
Gotcha. Yeah, no. Which is, yeah, well, it's up
And
to you
that
what
is
you do.
something where
But
I think here is something that is not quite human.
I know that's what people are noticing is the evil when like the Epstein files that I'm looking at, the Uganda that you're looking at, both of us looking deeper and seeing pure evil. And I'm not going to talk about the evil I saw. It's very dark. I don't want to bring that up on your show. It's just supposed to be a positive show. Excuse me.
Yes, sometimes things derail in another direction.
My goodness. Yeah. But the thing is, when you see these horrific, I mean horrific atrocities, and I'm not exaggerating, and you're not either. This is bad. So if we see that and we know, like, okay, we're not going there, how can we look at this? I think that's what people are really wondering. Like, how can you look at this and still have a normal life? Because it's so repulsive, and like you said, it looks beyond human. It looks like it's like soulless or evil itself. It does. I agree.
Yeah.
Just know that one by one, we're going to make a difference. We're going to take Earth back. I think this is the meek shall inherit the earth. If you ever wondered what did that mean, that this is what it means. It means you're not going to fight it. You're not going to stand up to the evils of the Epsteins of the world or whoever they are, or the Ugandan atrocity people. You're not going to stand up and fight back, no matter how much it makes your blood boil. You're going to say, I'm just reflecting that energy back to you. We're not going to accept this anymore. We're not going to accept your false promises, your lies, your intrigue. We're reflecting that right back to you, to the Epsteins. And I'm saying it plural because they're out there. They're not gone. That same thing is still there, and it's big. And you can do that with the Ugandan situation. It's not just Uganda. This is
Yeah,
happening other places too.
yeah, I
And it
know.
has happened. Yeah,
Yeah, it was just an example because I was, as an observer, very invested in it.
right.
because shortly before that there were horrible atrocities in Tanzania after the election. And then I thought, yeah, let's see how it goes in Uganda. It wasn't, in terms of numbers, it wasn't as horrible as Tanzania, but at the end of the day, not any better. Mm,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, and this has happened in countries around the world, and often they don't even get news coverage. I've noticed in the United States, I'm shocked. Like, why is this? Why are we seeing the news we're seeing, and we're not actually seeing what's happening? Like these atrocities in Africa, for example, starvation, battles, things that just never made our news, never. And I'm thinking, why? Why are we hearing only about certain things? But even that, and I could get upset about that, but there's no point. And we're just collectively going to be awakening by, with our eyes open, looking at what there is and recognizing we can bring love to everything. So we can look at the atrocity and bring love to it. And it may seem like you're not making a difference, but please know you are. This is the observer effect, and it does work through time, works across space. So our thoughts and our feelings are extremely powerful. When we work together, we see it amplified. That's what I believe creates the Mandela effect, actually. Speaking of an African, Nelson Mandela, very powerfully good individual. I think most people would say he had a net positive effect because of his ideas. Was he a perfect person? Probably not, but I'm not going to pick on that. But the point is, the Mandela effect, it was named because some people said Nelson Mandela died in prison because they remembered that that had happened. It was about 1987. I don't know if you remember it, but
No, I have some Mandela effects that I noticed it. But that particular one with Nelson Mandela, no, I don't have that memory. I have
I,
other, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And probably because you're watching Africa so closely, there's a physics idea called the quantum Zeno effect, and it means the watched pot never boils. It means if you're observing Africa, you're not going to see Nelson Mandela die in prison because you're so closely watching. So for you, so closely involved with Africa as you are, it didn't happen for you. And that would be true of everybody in South Africa as well. The people noticing it are like me in California, people in Europe that don't track Africa that closely. My friend Eileen, who was a reporter living in England, she went to go interview Nelson Mandela. She got there and he died in prison, and it was shocking. So for her, but remember, she was not tracking it beforehand. So it's like it only is but it's such a powerful experience because she went there to interview him and now he's dead. So she can't interview him. She's very confused. And so, and she writes about that in a book that she co-published and co-authored with some other authors, including Shane Robinson. It's called Mandela Effect, Friend or Foe. And I cover that in my book, The Mandela Effect its Society, Awakening from Me to We. Because I believe, and you mentioned you've got a bunch of them. I'd love to hear yours. But these Mandela effects, they're collectively alternate memories. So their collective alternate memory is not a false memory. It just means that some people remember it, some don't. That's not false. It just means that there are different reality bubbles that are happening. So I'd love to hear some of the Mandela effects you remember or you've noticed.
Um, yeah. What I th there is something with Snow White. I remember Mirror, Mirror on the Wall.
Yes, me too. And it was so it's like deep. It's like mirror, mirror on the wall. It's like a trance. Like it's like repetition, repetition. And now it's supposedly only ever been magic mirror on the wall. Who's the fairest of them all? Yeah, that's like, what? That's not the way the movie had it. No. But
Yeah,
now and even Walt Disney himself, there's an old video showing him saying, mirror, mirror on the wall. I'm like, that's Walt Disney. He's the creator of the Snow White movie. Why would what? Just
yeah.
wow. Yeah.
I grew up with those fairy tales when I was a child here in Germany. So, and I distinctly remember, and in German it says Spieglein, Spieglein an der Wand. Yeah. So mirror, mirror. Yeah. Usually Spiegel would be mirror, mirror, but Spieglein is, it's a tiny mirror. Yeah. So uh, there is zero chance in my experience that it's a magic mirror.
Exactly. Yes. So this is, and that's such a good example. I love the ones that are worldwide, because sometimes it's a small Mandela effect only for America for a certain product or something. I don't know if you have Fruit of the Loom t-shirts and underwear. You do? Okay.
Fruit of the loom. Yeah.
Some of us remember there was a basket that in America, English, they call it cornucopia. And children ask, Mommy, what's a What is this? Oh, this is a cornucopia. Like what? And so they learn the word and the picture because it's on the t-shirt. Now it was never on the t-shirt and never. That's a big one for a lot of people in America, maybe around the world.
Yeah, I remember that basket as well.
Yes. And it's strange that we all remember the same thing. It could have been like a plate. We don't remember a plate that's not there. We remember a basket. And so this is very significant, that we remember something that was now never there. Also, sometimes things in the body change, like the kidneys. If you put your hands where you remember the kidneys were, I put them on just on my lower back, right back there. That's not where they are anymore. They've moved up under the relative safety. They've moved up to safety under the rib cage. Because before, if you were in a boxing match and someone punched you in the kidney, it could be lethal. It could kill somebody. It still could, but now they're a little bit safer, a little bit higher up, a little bit better protected. And that's amazing because that affected 8 billion people on the planet overnight. These things, when they change, they're everywhere. And it's as if it was always that way. Except some of us remember, don't hit someone that low because it could kill. I did martial arts for a long time. And if you kick or punch someone there, you know not to do that because you could kill them. But now that's not true. That's not a date. I mean, you shouldn't hurt them, of course, but now it doesn't kill them, to be struck in that location of their lower back. Very interesting. So some of these Mandela effects are showing that we can instantly change everything for the entire population of the world, even people that didn't know that they were involved in the change. But does everyone notice? No, not everyone notices the same thing. But I feel the importance of this Mandela effect is inviting us to ask, what is the nature of reality? If it's changing, what do we have to do with that change, if anything? And what's that telling us about how good the future can get for humanity? So things can get very good for humanity when we realize we do have something to do with it. And the direction of what we're observing makes all the difference in the world. So if we're looking for how good things can get, we will tend to see that. Whereas if you're looking for how the opposite, like how bad it can get, then you're going to see that. So which direction would we like humanity to go? And just leave the question out in the air. But to me, I'm choosing optimism. I'm choosing let's find out how good it can get. Let's go that direction for humanity, even though it may look really bad right now. And I'm not arguing with that point. I'm just saying, yeah, it looks pretty bad. Certain things look soulless, like you said.
Mm, yeah. Well, I remember when this entire Mandela thing came up. As I said, I had some things that some people say it Sex and the City, yeah, and
Yes,
and they remember Sex in the City. I don't remember that.
right. And it's fine if some things like there's a bunch of them that don't mean much to me either, like Chick-fil-A and all the different spellings. I vaguely remember it a certain way, but I'm not sure. Sex in the City, Sex and the City. I don't know. The ones that get me would be the kidneys, the Snow White Mirror Mirror for sure. I also remember Tinkerbell used to show up at the beginning of the Sunday night Disney movie on TV. She'd fly in and she'd use her little wand and go tink, and then there'd be fireworks right over the castle. And that never happened, apparently. But I remember every Sunday she would do that. And a lot of us remember that every Sunday. And then where'd it go? And it never was there. Yeah. So, but that's okay that some people remember certain things and other people don't. This is the idea. It's on the cover of my book. I'm just going to hold it up. This is the book about the Mandela effect, and you'll see these are two reality bubbles. It's a physics idea. Eric Cavalcanti basically coined the term Wigner bubble after the physicist Eugene Wigner, or Wigner if you're German. So yeah, so these bubbles, the Wigner bubbles, are bubbles of reality. And if you're in one where I remember that Nelson Mandela died in prison, but people that lived in South Africa or very close to South Africa don't. Those are two different reality bubbles, Wigner bubbles. But we can share a lot in common too. So
And do you
it's a
think
very,
it's possible to go from one bubble to another and vice versa,
oh yes.
back
And
and
it, and
forth?
go And I think our minds are very adjustable and malleable, and we're getting better at learning to do this and to be able to go back and forth and choose what reality do you want. It sounds so weird, but I hear from people who've had experiences where they were just about to die in an oncoming car crash, like a huge vehicle is coming right at them inside a tunnel, and there's nowhere to go, and they just know this is it. But then the next thing they notice, that oncoming vehicle is behind them, and somehow they traveled through each other, and they're okay. And this is something I've talked about in when I give talks around the San Francisco Bay Area, and people approach me afterwards and say, they'll whisper it to me. They'll say that happened to me, or they'll send me an email later. And so it's an extremely common experience where people notice like they're just about to be gone, but it's like they know like I need to live, or they feel like they've been flung to safety. That happens. A person just feels like I don't know how it happened, but I'm not in the car. I'm on the grass nearby. I don't even know how I got there. It's kind of impossible, but I'm fine. And the rescue people showed up and the car was smashed, whatever, but they're fine. And this happens really often. And sort of impossible things happen. So I'm mentioning it because it's good to know that this does happen. If you know that these things are happening, like I keep repeating, then your subconscious can get calm about that and say, okay, this is because I am the mind and I'm not this particular reality or that particular reality. I can go back and forth between them. I am the consciousness. And it's a whole new identification of recognizing that we humans, we're pretty much magical beings because we're able to be that observer and choose how we observe. And the more we learn to do this through meditation and becoming, experts at metacognition, which is just noticing my thoughts are not me, but those are like, oh, I'm observing my thoughts, I'm observing those thoughts, I'm observing those feelings, and I am the observer. Then you can start being calm about things like I just want to kill those people that are so evil and soulless, and you can realize, okay, oh, I'm the observer of the observer of, okay, oh, okay, I see. So I'm just going to send that back to them from here. And I was angry, but now I'm observing. If you're up here, you're not angry. You're not the anger feeling anymore. You're observing the anger. And so it's giving us humans the ability to learn a skill by which we can actually we can look at the world and say, okay, this is happening in Uganda, but it's unacceptable. But sometimes I can see it could be better. And hey, I'm starting to feel it is better. Or with the Epstein thing, it's like, okay, maybe that one, I don't know. It doesn't matter which bubble it is, but you can be in the other reality bubble. Like we humans are going to catch on to this. We're not going to accept funding from really evil, soulless people anymore. We're not going to participate in this. We don't need to, and we're not going to. And we're not going to do that with the politicians. I mean, it sounds like military operations, but whatever it is, we're just not going to be part of that. We have the ability to imagine. That word imagine in the creative sense of the word. Henri Corbin talked about the imaginal realm. You can imagine things and then bring them into being. And that's what I'm actually talking about. We can do this together. And when we do this together, it's very powerful. And you don't need to be together in person. You and I could be working together just based on what you said. And I'm feeling like, wow, we need to clean things up in Uganda. And I never looked at that before. But I don't need to. I can just agree with you that there's been great evil and some soulless people were taking advantage. And we're just going to reflect that energy right back at them, and it's going to be better for Uganda. It's unacceptable what was happening there. And Tanzania, same thing. And the Epsteins, all the people doing that stuff, same thing. No more of this. We're just saying no. And we have a very strong, powerful ability to affect change beyond the space and time in our own little sphere. We think we're limited. We're not limited. We are connected through love and through caring about each other and about places and people and ideas and things that we love.
Hmm. So do you think that I mean, reflecting the energy back, that is one thing, but I also want to see accountability, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I feel like this is the important question here. Like, do you need to be seeing full accountability, or is it enough to turn it over to the universe, to God, what the creator? What, because to the degree that you require to see that accountability, you're dragging yourself into the karma cycle with that individual. You're going to have to be there to watch the whole thing. If you want to do that, great. And that's an individual choice. And I'm not telling anyone how to choose. Sometimes you might feel like, yeah, I need to be there. I need to see this thing through. I need to make sure it resolves properly. But really understand what you're agreeing to, because there could be a long haul, many lifetimes involved, much more than just, I mean, if you believe in many lifetimes, this could be quite a thing. So you're in it for quite a long haul if you're doing that. Um, I prefer to ask, how good can it get for all concerned? So that you might think that's a cheat code. It kind of is. Basically, it's saying, okay, how good can this get for all concerned? Maybe I don't need to see the ultimate justice dealt out for this individual or for these people. Maybe I can trust this process, and I don't need to be there torturing my own soul for unknown numbers of lifetimes until this finally gets sorted out, because it could be a while. Or do I trust the process?
But wh why would it have to take that long to be sorted out?
Well, when I was, I didn't talk about this, but when I came into this lifetime, I remembered that I'd had other lives.
Hmm.
I remembered a past life in the future, like 500 years in our future from now, circa 2500, and lots of other things. So, to have that kind of a memory is strange because it's not normal in this life. Yeah, most people don't have that, but some people do, especially right now. It's like I think it's more common now than I think it's been in a while for a lot of us to have that feeling of these past life memories. And so, if we know that, then you start noticing things. Like when I was quite young, I didn't want to be here. I thought there'd been a mistake. I felt like
Yeah. Hello here. Yeah.
I thought I'm on the wrong planet. They made a mistake,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Wrong
like,
exit.
yeah, yeah. So I was 5 and I just wanted to be dead again because I remembered it. It was good. I loved being dead. It's like, okay, I'm going back. That I'm out. But then there was a huge, you know how you can have an intervention if someone that you love is doing drugs or alcohol. Well, there was an angelic intervention on my behalf. So a bunch of angels showed up in my bedroom. Time came to a stop. I'm 5 years old and they're giving me a choice. Like, you can choose fast. That was what I wanted to do. Just be dead and gone. I'm out of here. Or I can choose slow, long, long, long life. I don't know how long, but I'm here for other people. And I'm like, I'm out of here. And they're like, not so fast, not so fast. Because if you go now, your parents will never get over it. I was like, oh yeah, they'll get over it. But I'm 5, so it sounds really terrible. Number two, the people that you would have helped are not going to be helped by you. They'll find someone else. Very callous. Again, I'm 5. I'm sorry. Number three, you chose this and you'll be back and you're going to lose your 5-year head start. I'm like, wait, 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 what? I chose this. I'll be back. I'm going to lose 5 years. Okay, I choose slow. I'll stay. They're like, thank you. Okay, so that's what happened with me. Um, and then subsequently, I've taken a lot of looks at why am I on this messed up planet with these people that are, frankly, they're baby and young souls. I'll just be honest. What do I mean by that? They do not know very much. Are they going to learn everything that I would feel like they should know in one lifetime? No. What about the young souls? They could learn, maybe. No, no, maybe, but maybe not. I can't count on that. They might, but they're probably not. So, am I going to be happy with what's going on here? No. No, I'm going to be looking at this like, what are these baby souls and young souls doing? They're choosing to give their soul up. They're going soulless. Why? Again, baby and young souls. They do this, you know. I don't know what else to say about it. So am I going to wait around? I have had conversations with the creator, with the absolute. How long is this going to take? Probably like 20,000, 40,000 years. I don't live that long. I'm not going to see justice in my time to see a baby soul going soulless and doing this. I'm not going to see that out in my lifetime in this planet right now. So that's just what I've learned from, and I have a strange perspective, but I'm sharing, just putting the cards on the table. That's what it looks like to me. Now, results may vary, and different people can see different things, and you can watch a justice cycle, and maybe if it is a young or a mature soul, you might actually see justice in this lifetime because that would be a mature soul saying, "Oh my gosh, what am I doing?" That'd be great. But will it happen every time? I don't think. I mean, maybe. How good can it get, right? I'm not going to jinx it. Like, yeah, let's see it. On the other hand, this looked like a messed up planet when I got here, and so I'm just being honest. It still looks. There's a lot of dark here. It's dirty, you know. It seems like I would clean it up a lot more. I would love to. I would still love to. So when I ask how good can it get, I am calling that in big time. I'm calling in a massive cleanup at the every single level. How good can everything get? How good can everyone get? And I'm doing that on purpose. And the more of us doing that together, the more we'll start to see that. And I mean it for those of us who are seeing the dark. You and I looking at these soulless people. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it. Let's do it.
Yeah, so in other words, when we join together, the task is easier, and maybe for one person alone, it is not possible to do that.
Yeah, there's a collective effect. And so we're talking about collective consciousness here. So we only need about 10% of us to steer the whole thing. It doesn't take that much. And we've hit that point of meditators around the world. So we're there. We can do this. And you don't need to be there in person. You can just know that there are good-hearted people like you that wish for the atrocities right where you are to come to an end. And also the ones that are not right where you are, but all the atrocities. You're just collectively wishing for that. Like this, that's it. We need to see how good this can get for all of us. We are calling that in. We're calling that for right now. Just to say, have you guys not had enough of this? And I know the baby souls and young souls are like, we're still dealing with this. Like, oh boy. But the game's over because humanity is evolving. So there are signs of that as well. I didn't get into any of that, but there's every religion, every spiritual path has basically prophecies that talk about this time, and we're in it right now. So this is happening real time. And to me, the Mandela effect and what we're talking about, you and I, is at the heart of the whole thing, that we are the change. We don't need to look to any hero. It's not going to be someone saving all of us. We're doing this together. But I think it's about 10% of us doing this all together, dragging along some of the baby and young souls who are still having fun. I'm sorry. They're doing what they're doing, but there's going to be a shakedown. And so it's like the reality itself is shaking. It's kind of like a snake shedding its skin. It's like we're going to leave that fourth world behind and go into the fifth. So that the fifth world is here. We're seeing the evidence of that. And again, this ties in with a lot of these prophecies and the oral histories and tradition as taught by some of the indigenous peoples of the world who have tracked the ending of the world many times. So they know what these disaster cycles are like, and they're saying that we're entering one now. And just those who have the purity of heart and maintain their relationships with each other and the connection to our true intuition, not false gods and false leaders, but our true intuition. We're going to easily, effortlessly, well, I mean, it'll be challenging like life always is, but we'll make it to this new world. And it is here. To me, this is the next golden age of humanity where we know that what we think and what we feel is manifest. We are creators, literally, with our words, with our thoughts, with our feelings. And yes, with our combination shared intention together. Yes.
Hmm. Yeah, you definitely have to come back. We didn't touch on a lot of things we
Yes.
took. a little detour when I started mentioning Uganda. But it is so funny that you mentioned that. As a little child, I had the same thing with the difference that I didn't wish to be dead. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was not what I wanted, but I distinctly remember as a little child that I thought, I don't belong here. Everything is upside down here.
Well, I know it's totally inverted, but I'm so glad you're here. Because you're here, you can have this program. You can talk to people and share these ideas. And we
Mm.
need you. We need you now more than ever. So thank you for doing this. Thank you so much, Judith.
Thank you for coming. Yeah, that was Cynthia Sue Larson, and we see you next time. Until then, stay safe and sound.